"Your money's wasted on vacations, Grandma." My granddaughter Macy said it through a mouthful of Caesar salad, not even looking up from her phone. We were sitting at the Olive Garden, her choice, not mine, and I'd just asked about the photos I'd seen on Facebook, her and her boyfriend in Cancun. Again, third trip this year. I just thought, I started, but she cut me off. "You just thought what? That we should sit around being miserable like you?" She finally looked at me, and her eyes had that flat, annoyed look young people get when old people don't understand the modern world. "Jake and I work hard. We deserve to travel." Jake worked part-time at a vape shop. Macy had been between opportunities for 7 months. I didn't say that. I never said things like that. Instead, I smiled and took a sip of my water and changed the subject to something safer, like the weather, and let her scroll through her phone while I picked at my soup. When the check came, I paid. I always paid. In the car afterward, alone, I sat in the parking lot and looked at my bank statement on my phone. My hands shook a little as I scrolled. Arthritis mostly, but also something else. Something I'd been ignoring for months. The credit card I'd given Macy for emergencies showed charges I didn't recognize. $847 at some resort in Mexico, $432 at a beach club, $215 at a restaurant I couldn't pronounce. And those were just from last week. I pressed my fingers against my temple where a headache was starting to bloom. The card had been Derek's idea. My son, Macy's father. "Mom, what if she needs something and can't reach us?" he'd said last Christmas. "What if her car breaks down or there's a medical emergency? Just give her one of your cards for peace of mind." Peace of mind, right. I'd been a bookkeeper for 37 years before I retired. Numbers were my language. I knew exactly what I was looking at, but knowing and accepting are two different countries, and I'd been living in the land of denial for a long time. The truth was, I'd seen the charges before. I'd noticed them creeping up over the past 6 months. Restaurants, flights, hotels, shopping trips to places I'd never been. Each time, I told myself there must be some explanation. Maybe Macy was planning to pay me back. Maybe she'd asked and I'd forgotten. My memory wasn't what it used to be after all. Maybe I was just being paranoid and difficult, the way old people get. But "your money's wasted on vacations, Grandma," didn't leave much room for interpretation. I drove home slowly, taking the long way past the park where I used to bring Derek and his sister when they were small. The playground had new equipment now, bright plastic instead of the metal slides we used to have. Everything changes. Everyone moves on. My house sat at the end of Maple Street, a small 2-bedroom with blue shutters that needed repainting. My husband Richard had bought it in 1979, when mortgage rates were insane and everyone said we were crazy. We'd raised 2 kids here, buried a dog in the backyard, celebrated 43 anniversaries before his heart gave out 3 years ago. Now it was just me and the memories and the silence. I made tea, chamomile, because regular caffeine kept me up at night, and sat at the kitchen table with my laptop. My reading glasses were on a chain around my neck. I'd stopped losing them after the 3rd pair disappeared. The credit card website loaded slowly. Rural internet. I went through the charges one by one, writing them down in my notebook with the little flowers on the cover. A gift from Macy 2 birthdays ago, back when she still bought gifts instead of just texting "Happy B-Day, Grandma" with a heart emoji. March 1247. April 2103. May 1376. June 3429. My monthly Social Security was $1,840. My small pension from the accounting firm was another $620. I lived on $2,260 a month, total. I've been living on that for 3 years, very carefully, making it stretch. The credit card had a $15,000 limit. It was currently at $14,332. I felt something cold settle in my chest. Not quite panic, more like the feeling you get when you take a wrong turn in a strange city and suddenly nothing looks familiar. The thing is, I'd never been good at confrontation. Richard used to handle the difficult conversations, with the kids, with neighbors, with the car dealership when they tried to oversell us on a warranty. After he died, I'd simply avoided conflict altogether. It was easier, that way. Safer, but sitting there, Looking at those numbers, I felt something shift. I picked up my phone and scrolled to Macy's contact. My thumb hovered over the call button. No, not yet. I needed to think. Instead, I went to the credit card settings and poked around until I found what I was looking for: Manage Authorized Users. It took me 3 tries to remember my password. I'd written it down somewhere, but where? And another 5 minutes to navigate the menus. Macy's name appeared under Authorized Users, along with her card number. There was a button that said, Remove User. My hand trembled over the mouse. What would happen if I clicked it? Macy would be embarrassed, certainly, angry probably. Derek would call, using that disappointed voice he'd perfected over the years. Mom, why didn't you just talk to her? Why did you have to make such a dramatic gesture? I could hear it already. But then I thought about Macy's face across the table at Olive Garden. The casual cruelty of it. Your money's wasted on vacations, Grandma. Not, thank you for the emergencies. I didn't realize how much I'd been spending. Just contempt, wrapped in youth and certainty. I clicked the button. A confirmation screen popped up. Are you sure you want to remove Macy Patterson as an authorized user? This action will deactivate her card immediately. My cursor sat on confirm for a long time. Through the kitchen window, I could see Mrs. Chen next door watering her roses. She waved. I waved back automatically. I clicked confirm. The screen changed. Macy Patterson has been removed as an authorized user. Just like that. Done. I closed the laptop and sat very still, waiting to feel something, regret maybe, or relief. But I just felt tired, bone tired, in the way that has nothing to do with sleep. The house was so quiet I could hear the refrigerator humming. My phone buzzed 20 minutes later. A text from Macy. Grandma, my card isn't working? I stared at it for a long moment, then set the phone face down on the table. The tea had gone cold. I dumped it in the sink and rinsed the cup, watching the brown liquid swirl down the drain. Then I went to my bedroom and opened the closet, pushing past the winter coats and Richard's old jacket that I couldn't bring myself to donate. In the back, there was a small fireproof box. I hadn't opened it in months. Inside were the important documents: birth certificates, the deed to the house, Richard's death, and underneath all of that, a thick folder I'd almost forgotten about: my will. I pulled it out and sat on the edge of the bed, reading through provisions I'd made 5 years ago when everything was different. When I still believed in certain things about family and fairness and the natural order of who takes care of whom. The primary beneficiaries were Derek and my daughter Linda, split equally. Macy and her brother Tyler got smaller amounts, $15,000 each, along with some of my jewelry and personal items. I read it twice, then put it back in the box. But I didn't lock the box yet. Instead, I sat there in the quiet bedroom in the house I'd lived in for 45 years and wondered what else I'd been too scared to look at clearly. My phone buzzed again. Then again. I didn't look. Outside, the sun was starting to set, painting everything in that golden hour light that photographers love. Through my window, I could see the maple tree in the front yard, the one Richard planted the year Derek was born. Something was ending. I could feel it. And just maybe, something else was beginning. Derek called at 7:15 the next morning. I was making oatmeal, the old-fashioned kind that takes 20 minutes because the instant stuff tastes like wallpaper paste. The phone rang and I saw his name on the screen, and for just a second I considered not answering. But old habits die hard. Hi, sweetheart. Mom. His voice was tight, professional. We need to talk about what you did. I stirred the oatmeal slowly, watching the bubbles rise and pop. What I did? You cut off Macy's card without any warning, without even a conversation. Do you have any idea how humiliating that was for her? Humiliating, I repeated. She was out to dinner with Jake's parents. The card declined in front of everyone. She had to call Jake's mother aside and borrow money. Do you understand how that looked? I turned off the stove. She was using my emergency card to take her boyfriend's parents out to dinner? That's not the point, Mom. Then what is the point, Derek? Silence. I could hear him breathing, Could picture him in his office with the view of downtown Portland, running his hand through his thinning hair the way he did when he was frustrated. The point is that you're becoming erratic, making rash decisions. This isn't like you. Erratic. That was a new one. I looked at the statements, I said quietly. Over $14,000 in 6 months. Flights, hotels, restaurants. That card was supposed to be for emergencies. Macy's going through a rough time. She needed a vacation to Cancun 3 times? You don't understand the pressures young people are under today. The economy, the job market. I understand I'm 72 years old and living on Social Security. Nobody asked you to give her the card, Mom. You offered. That stopped me. Because he was right. I had offered. When Derek suggested it, I'd said yes immediately, eager. To be helpful, to be needed, to be the kind of grandmother who could swoop in and solve problems. You're right, I said. I did offer, and now I'm taking the offer back. Another silence, longer this time. When he spoke again, his voice had changed. Softer, more careful. Mom, Linda and I have been talking. We're worried about you. My daughter's name sent a small spike of anxiety through my chest. Linda lived in Seattle with her husband and twin boys. We talked maybe once a month. Quick calls that felt like obligations checked off a list. Worried about what? About you living alone in that big house. About your decision-making. About whether you're managing okay. I sat down at the kitchen table. My oatmeal was getting cold, forming a skin on top. I'm managing fine. Are you? Because from where I'm sitting, it looks like you're isolating yourself and making impulsive choices. First you cancel family dinner last month. I had a cold. Then you stopped coming to Tyler's baseball games. The bleachers hurt my back, Derek. You know that. And now you're cutting off Macy without any warning, without any discussion with the family about what's appropriate. The family? The words came out sharper than I intended. You mean you want me to ask your permission before managing my own credit card? I want you to act like the mother I know, the rational, kind person who doesn't suddenly turn cruel to her own granddaughter. Cruel. I looked down at my hands, age spots I didn't remember getting, veins visible under thin skin. These hands had changed thousands of diapers, packed thousands of lunches, worked thousands of hours at a desk adding up other people's numbers so I could keep my own family fed. I need to go, I said. Mom, wait. I hung up. The phone rang again immediately. I turned it off. The oatmeal went in the trash. I wasn't hungry anymore. I spent the day cleaning, which is what I did when I needed to. Think. Started with the bathroom, scrubbing the tile grout with an old toothbrush until my knees ached. Moved to the kitchen, reorganizing the spice cabinet that didn't need reorganizing. Wiped down the baseboards in the hallway. By 3 o'clock, I'd worked my way to Richard's office. We'd called it that even after he retired, even though it was really just the second bedroom with a desk and some filing cabinets. I'd barely touched it since he died. Linda had wanted to clean it out, turn it into a meditation space or something equally ridiculous, but I'd refused. Now I stood in the doorway, looking at the dust motes floating in the afternoon light. His reading glasses were still on the desk, a coffee mug with a faded logo from some tech conference in the 90s. A framed photo of the two of us at Crater Lake, both of us squinting into the sun, both of us younger than I could quite believe. I sat in his chair, my chair now, I supposed, and opened the desk drawer. Pens, paper clips, a calculator with dead batteries, and underneath, a leather notebook I'd never seen before. I pulled it out. The leather was soft, worn. Richard's handwriting on the first page. Financial Planning, 2019, the year before he got sick. I flipped through slowly. Pages of notes in his cramped, precise script. Retirement calculations. Social Security estimates. A timeline of when we'd pay off the house. We'd had 3 years left on the mortgage when he died. I'd used his life insurance to pay it off. Completely. Make sure M doesn't worry, he'd written in the margin of one page. M for Margaret. For me. My throat tightened. I kept reading. More calculations, investment accounts I'd known about. Some I hadn't. Richard had been careful with money, always planning, always thinking ahead. It was one of the things that had let me sleep at night during the lean years. Then, near the back of the notebook, I found a page that made me stop. Asset protection. Discuss with M. Below it, a list. House. Deed, joint ownership, transfer on death bank accounts, beneficiary designations current. Life insurance, adequate coverage for M's needs, investment accounts, review with Steinberg. Martin Steinberg, Richard's financial advisor, the one who'd helped us set up our retirement accounts 20-some years ago. I hadn't talked to him since Richard's funeral, when he'd pulled me aside and said something about reviewing our accounts together whenever I was ready. I'd never called. It seemed too complicated, too overwhelming. The life insurance had been enough to pay off the house and cover the funeral. My Social Security and pension covered my monthly bills. I'd told myself I was fine, that I didn't need to dig into the complicated stuff. But now I pulled out my phone, powered it back on, ignoring the 7 missed calls from Derek, and searched for Steinberg's number. It was in my contacts, saved under Financial Martin. I called before I could talk myself out of it. Steinberg. Financial. This is Donna speaking. Hi, yes, I'm looking for Martin Steinberg. This is Margaret Patterson. I'm a client. Well, my late husband Richard was a client. Oh, Mrs. Patterson. Of course. Let me check if Martin's available. Muzak played, something instrumental and vaguely jazzy. Then, Margaret, I'm so glad to hear from you. Martin's voice was warm, grandfatherly, though he was probably younger than me. How are you holding up? I'm fine. Martin, I was wondering if we could schedule a time to meet, to review the accounts Richard had with you. Absolutely. I've been hoping you'd call. There are some things we should definitely discuss. How's Friday at 10? Friday's perfect. Wonderful. I'll have Donna send you a confirmation email. And Margaret, I'm really glad you reached out. After I hung up, I sat for a long time with the notebook in my lap. The house was silent except for the tick of the clock in the hallway, the one Richard's mother had given us as a wedding present. My phone buzzed, a text from Linda this time. Mom, Derek told me what happened. We need to talk. This isn't okay. I stared at the message. We need to talk. Not, are you okay? Not, what's going on? Just, this isn't okay. I thought about Richard's note. Make sure M doesn't worry. He tried so hard to take care of me, to leave me secure. And I'd been so eager to be useful, to be generous, to be the kind of mother and grandmother who helped without being asked, that I'd never stopped to wonder if, just maybe, I was the one being taken care of, or taken advantage of. I opened the desk's file drawer and started pulling out folders, bank statements, tax returns, investment quarterly reports still in their unopened envelopes. I had no idea what I was looking at, really, but I had until Friday to figure it out, and for the first time in 3 years, I felt something besides tired. I felt angry. Friday morning, I woke up at 5:30, which was earlier than usual, but not surprising. I'd barely slept. I spent an hour getting ready, which was ridiculous. Martin Steinberg had known me for 20 years. He'd seen me at Richard's funeral with mascara running down my face. But still, I put on my good navy pants and the cream blouse Linda had given me last Christmas, still had the tags on it, and even a little lipstick. Armor, I suppose, the kind women my age understand. The drive to Steinberg's office took 30 minutes. He was downtown, in one of those renovated buildings that used to be something else. A bank, maybe, or a department store. Glass and exposed brick. Very modern. I sat in my car in the parking garage for 5 minutes after I arrived, going through the folder I'd prepared. Bank statements, the credit card bills, Richard's leather notebook. My hands were shaking slightly, and I couldn't tell if it was the arthritis or nerves. Mrs. Patterson? A woman stood beside my car window, young, maybe 30, with kind eyes and a tablet tucked under. Her arm. I'm Donna. We spoke on the phone. Martin asked me to come down and escort you up. The elevator system can be a little confusing. I followed her inside, grateful not to have to navigate alone. The elevator had a touchscreen instead of buttons. Everything was touchscreen now. Even the grocery store checkout made me feel ancient. Martin's office was on the 4th floor, smaller than I expected but warmly decorated. Books on shelves, a few photos of what looked like grandkids, a window overlooking the street below. "Margaret." He stood and came around the desk, taking both my hands in his. "It's really good to see you." "You too, Martin." He was older than I remembered, more gray in his hair. But then again, 3 years had passed. We'd all gotten older. Coffee would be lovely, black. Donna disappeared and returned with 2 mugs on a small tray, then quietly closed the door behind her. Martin settled back behind his desk, pulled out a legal pad, and gave me a gentle smile. "So, you said you wanted to review Richard's accounts." "Our accounts," I corrected softly. "Of course, our accounts." He tapped something on his computer. "I have everything pulled up here. But first, let me ask, how have you been managing? Financially?" I told him about the Social Security, the pension, the paid-off house, about living carefully, making it work. I didn't mention the credit card or Macy. That felt too raw, too embarrassing. He nodded, listening carefully. When I finished, he leaned back in his chair. "Margaret, can I ask you something? When Richard passed, did anyone sit down with you and go through all of your assets? The full picture?" "The life insurance company sent someone, and the funeral home had a coordinator who helped with some of the paperwork. But the investment accounts? The retirement funds Richard had set up?" I hesitated. I knew they existed, but Richard always handled that side of things, and after he died I couldn't think about it. The life insurance was enough to pay everything off, and I had enough to live on, so I thought, "You thought you were fine." "Yes." Martin turned his computer monitor so I could see it. A spreadsheet with numbers I didn't immediately understand. "Margaret, you have approximately $340,000 in investment accounts that Richard set up over the years." The room went very still. "I'm sorry, what?" $340,000. Give or take, depending on market fluctuations. It's split between a few different accounts, some in both your names, some that transferred to you automatically when Richard died. There's an IRA, a Roth IRA, and a taxable brokerage account. I stared at the screen, the numbers blurred. "But I don't... How?" Richard was extremely disciplined about saving. He set up automatic contributions years ago, even small amounts when things were tight. And he made some very smart investment choices. This portfolio has been growing for over 30 years. $340,000. I lived on $2,160 a month. I'd been washing and reusing Ziploc bags to save money. Why didn't anyone tell me? Martin's expression shifted to something more uncomfortable. I tried to reach out several times after the funeral. I sent letters, emails, left voicemails. I assumed you were overwhelmed, needed time, and frankly, he paused. "Your son Derek called me about 6 months after Richard passed. He said you were struggling with grief, that financial discussions were too much for you right now, and that he'd be helping you manage things." My chest tightened. "Derek called you?" "Yes. He asked me to send all statements and correspondence to his email address instead of yours, so he could filter out unnecessary stress for you. I thought it was a caring son looking out for his mother." "And did you? Send everything to him?" "I did." Martin looked genuinely apologetic. "Margaret, in my defense, you never responded to any of my attempts to contact you directly, and Derek seemed well informed about your situation. He had your power of attorney documents." "What?" "He faxed over paperwork showing he had financial power of attorney. It all looked legitimate." The room tilted slightly. I gripped the armrest of my chair. "I never gave Derek power of attorney." Martin's face went pale. "Are you certain?" "I'm certain." He pulled up another file on his computer, clicked through several screens. "The documents are dated 6 months after Richard's death. Notarized. Your signature is on them. Can I see them?" He printed them out, hands moving quickly now, professional concern replacing the warm friendliness from earlier. I looked at the papers. 3 pages, legal language I didn't fully understand. And at the bottom, A signature that looked like mine but wasn't quite right. The M was too loopy. I always made it sharp, angular, a habit from decades of signing financial documents at work. This isn't my signature. Margaret, this is not my signature, Martin. The room was very quiet. Outside, I could hear traffic, the distant sound of a siren. Martin took off his glasses and rubbed his eyes. Jesus. Has Derek done anything with the accounts? No, actually, that's the strange thing. He hasn't made any withdrawals or changes. He just asked for statements and information. I assumed he was monitoring things for you, making sure everything was secure, I thought. About Derek's calls over the past 3 years. Always casual, always checking in. How are you doing, Mom? Any big expenses coming up? Everything going okay with your bills? I'd thought he was being caring. Can you print out the statements? I asked. All of them, from the past 3 years. Of course. While the printer hummed, Martin made a phone call. I heard fragments. Suspected fraud. Financial elder abuse. Need to document everything. Elder abuse. I was somebody's victim. At 72, after a lifetime of managing books and balancing accounts and being the responsible one, I was the old lady who'd been tricked. The shame was almost worse than the anger. Martin hung up and sat down across from me, not behind the desk this time. Closer. He was talking to a friend, not a client. Margaret, I'm so sorry. I should have been more careful. I should have verified those documents more thoroughly. It's not your fault. It is partly. But right now, we need to focus on protecting your assets. I'm going to recommend we immediately remove Derek's access to any information about these accounts. We should also talk to an attorney who specializes in elder law. I don't want to call the police. The words came out automatically, surprising even me. Martin looked at me carefully. That's your choice. But you should know that what Derek did, forging a power of attorney, is a serious crime. He's my son. I understand. But he didn't. Not really. How could he? Derek was my firstborn. I'd held him minutes after he entered the world. I'd taught him to tie his shoes, to ride a bike. I'd sat through every school play, every parent-teacher conference. I'd been so proud when he graduated college, when he got his first real job, when he bought his first house. He was my son, and he'd forged my signature to access information about money he thought was his. Does he know? I asked quietly. About the amount? The $340,000? Yes, he's received quarterly statements for the past 2.5 years. I thought about my credit card, maxed out by Macy, about Derek's careful questions, his concern about me living alone, about Linda in Seattle, suddenly worried about my decision-making. They were circling. What happens to this money when I die? I asked. Martin pulled up another screen. According to the beneficiary designations Richard set up, and these haven't been changed, it's split evenly between Derek and Linda. Of course. Can I change? That? Absolutely. You can change beneficiaries anytime you want. You can also set up trusts, add conditions, specify different distributions. This is your money, Margaret. You have complete control. My money. For 3 years, I'd been living like a church mouse, carefully budgeting every dollar, while my son monitored $350,000 and planned for the day it would be his. I need copies of everything, I said. The forged power of attorney, the statements, documentation of every time Derek contacted you. Everything. You'll have it today. And Martin? I don't want anyone to know we had this meeting. Not Derek, not Linda, not anyone. He nodded slowly. I understand. Do you? Because right now, I need to figure out what I'm dealing with before they know I know. They might already suspect something. You cut off Macy's card. They think I'm being erratic, impulsive, a confused old woman making rash decisions. I stood up, surprised by how steady my legs felt. Let them think that for now. Martin walked me to the door, handed me a thick folder of documents. Margaret, please be careful, and please consider talking to that elder law attorney. I can give you a referral. I will. Thank you, Martin, for being honest with me. I should have been honest 3 years ago. In the elevator going down, I looked at my reflection in the polished metal doors, navy pants, cream blouse, lipstick slightly smudged. I didn't look like someone with $340,000. I looked like someone's grandmother, someone's confused, erratic, easily managed mother. Good. My phone buzzed as I reached my car. A text from Derek. "Mom, we really need to talk. This silence isn't healthy. Call me when you get a chance." I deleted it without responding. Then I sat in my car and opened the folder Martin had given me, reading through statements I should have seen years ago, looking at my son's forged signature next to mine. And I started to plan. The attorney's office was nothing like Martin's. No exposed brick or modern design. Just a small suite in a strip mall between a tax preparer and a dental clinic, with outdated carpet and fluorescent lights that hummed. But Sarah Chen came highly recommended, Martin had said. Specialized in elder law. Tough as nails. She was younger than I expected, maybe 45, with reading glasses on a beaded chain and a no-nonsense handshake. "Mrs. Patterson, thank you for coming in." Martin filled me in on the basics, but I'd like to hear it in your own words. I told her everything. The credit card, Macy's casual cruelty, Derek's forged power of attorney, the $340,000 I hadn't known existed. My voice stayed steady until I got to the part about Derek calling me erratic, and then something cracked a little. Sarah pushed a box of tissues across the desk. I didn't take one. Crying felt like giving in. "Have you confronted your son about the forged document?" she asked. "No." "Why not?" I thought about how to explain it. "Because the moment I do, everything changes. Right now they think I'm just a confused old woman who cut off her granddaughter's credit card in a moment of senility. If I tell them I know about the money, about the forgery, I don't know what they'll do." Sarah leaned back in her chair. "What do you think they'll do?" "I think they'll try to prove I'm incompetent. I think they'll say I'm paranoid, that I'm imagining things, that grief has made me unstable. Derek's already laying the groundwork. Talking about how I'm isolating myself, making impulsive decisions. Are you? Isolating yourself? I stopped going to family dinners where my son and daughter treated me like a checkbook with legs. Is that isolation or self-preservation? A small smile crossed Sarah's face. Fair point. Mrs. Patterson, I'm going to be very direct with you. What your son did, forging a power of attorney, is fraud. It's also financial elder abuse. You have grounds for both civil and criminal action. I don't want him. I understand, but you need to understand something too. This pattern doesn't usually get better on its own. Adult children who engage in financial exploitation of their parents typically escalate. Right now, Derek hasn't actually stolen from you. He's just positioned himself to know when you die and how much he'll get. But if he thinks you're becoming a threat to that inheritance, or if he needs money before you're gone— She didn't finish the sentence. She didn't have to. "What are my options?" I asked. Sarah pulled out a legal pad and started making notes. "First, we revoke any actual power of attorney documents you've signed, if any exist. Second, we create new ones naming someone you trust, not family." "Do you have anyone?" I thought about it. My friends from book club were lovely but scattered. My cousin in Florida was 86. "Not really." "Then we can name a professional fiduciary or keep the power of attorney with me as your attorney, to be activated only if you're truly incapacitated. Third, we change all your beneficiary designations. Fourth, we consider a trust structure to protect assets." "How long does all that take?" "The paperwork? I can have most of it ready by next week. But Mrs. Patterson, there's something else you should consider." "What?" "A competency evaluation. Independent, third-party, thorough, medical and cognitive testing that proves you're of sound mind. Because if your children are going to challenge your decisions, and I think they will, you want documentation that you knew exactly what you were doing." The fluorescent lights hummed above us. "They're really going to fight me on this," I said quietly. "Probably. Adult children usually don't give up expected inheritances without a battle, especially when it's this much money." I looked down at my hands. The age spots, the thin skin, The wedding ring I still wore 3 years after Richard died. Do you think I'm being vindictive? I asked. Cutting them off? Sarah set down her pen and looked at me directly. I think you're being rational. Your granddaughter spent $14,000 of your money on vacations and called it wasteful when you questioned it. Your son forged legal documents to monitor assets he considered his future property. Your daughter has joined him in questioning your competence. This isn't a family disagreement about where to have Thanksgiving dinner. This is financial abuse. But they're my children, yes. And you're their mother, not their ATM. Something about the bluntness of it, the total lack of sentimentality, made me sit up straighter. What do I do first? I asked. You go home and write down everything, every loan you've given them that wasn't repaid, every expense you've covered, every time they've asked for money or used your credit, dates, amounts, everything you can remember. Then we'll talk about what happens next. I stopped at the grocery store on the way home, walked the aisles slowly, putting things in my cart I normally wouldn't buy. Good coffee, fresh salmon, a pint of expensive ice cream. At the checkout, the total was $73.40. I swiped my card without wincing. I had $340,000. I could buy the good coffee. Back home, I made myself lunch, an actual lunch, not just crackers and cheese, and then sat down at Richard's desk with a fresh notebook. Financial history, Derek and Linda, I wrote at the top. Then I started remembering. The $5,000 we'd lent Derek for a down payment on his first car, never repaid. The $8,000 for Linda's wedding that somehow became $12,000 when the venue changed at the last minute. The $3,500 to help Derek with unexpected medical bills that turned out to be elective dental work. 4 months of Macy's rent when she was between jobs the first time. $4,000. The $2,000 we'd given Linda for the twins' preschool tuition. Tyler's braces. Derek had asked us to chip in because his insurance didn't cover it. $3,200. On and on and on. By the time I finished, my hand was cramping and I'd filled 11 pages. The total came to $47,300. $47,300. Given, not lent. Expected to be appreciated, not repaid. Because that's what family did. That's what parents did. And not once, not one single time, had either of them said thank you or asked if we could afford it. I sat back and looked at the pages spread across the desk. Richard would have been devastated. He'd been so proud of Derek's success, of Linda's beautiful family. He'd never said no when they asked for help. They're building their lives, he'd say. We're just giving them a head start. My phone rang. Linda this time. I stared at it for 3 rings, then answered. Hi, honey. Mom. Her voice was tight. We need to talk about what's happening. What's happening? Derek told me you've been acting strange, cutting off Macy without warning, refusing to return his calls. He's worried about you. Is he? Mom, don't be like that. We're all worried. This isn't like you. I looked at my notebook. 11 pages of financial history they'd never acknowledged. What is like me, Linda? Quiet? Accommodating? Writing checks without questions? Silence. Then, that's not fair. Isn't it? We've never asked you for anything you couldn't afford. You've never asked me if I could afford it. Because you always said yes. You always told us you were happy to help. I was happy to help. Past tense. I could hear her breathing, sharp and angry. Derek thinks you might be experiencing some cognitive decline. Early dementia, maybe. The impulsivity, the paranoia, the personality changes. I'm not paranoid or demented, Linda. I'm awake. What does that mean? It means I finally looked at the statements, all of them. Another silence, longer this time. When she spoke again, her voice was careful. What statements? The credit card Macy maxed out. The investment accounts your father left me. The forged power of attorney Derek used to monitor my assets. I don't know what you're talking about. Don't you? Derek never mentioned he'd been receiving my financial statements for the past 3 years. He was trying to help you by forging my signature? Mom, you're not making sense. You're confused. Maybe we should... I'm not confused, Linda. For the first time in 3 years, I'm seeing clearly. Derek was right. You do need help, professional help. Tom and I have been discussing it, and we think maybe it's time to look into assisted living facilities. Somewhere you'd be safe, where people could look after you. Somewhere you could sell my house and split the proceeds. Her intake of breath was sharp. How dare you? How dare I what? Notice that my children have been circling my assets like vultures, planning for my incompetence so they can get their hands on my money faster? That is not— we would never— She was sputtering now, genuinely angry. You're being cruel and unfair. After everything we've done for you. What have you done for me, Linda? We call you. We invite you to things. We include you in our lives. You call once a month for 10 minutes. You invite me to events where I'm expected to bring gifts and write checks. You include me when you need something. I can't believe this. Derek said you were turning bitter, but I didn't believe him. This isn't you, Mom. This is grief talking. This is loneliness and old age and— I hung up. The phone immediately started ringing again. I turned it off. My hands were shaking now. Not arthritis, pure adrenaline. I just burned a bridge with my daughter, possibly permanently, and I felt free, not happy, not vindicated, just free. I looked at the notebook again, then at the folder from Martin Steinberg, then at the business card Sarah Chen had given me. Then I did something I hadn't done in 3 years. I called my old boss from the accounting firm, Rita Martinez. We'd worked together for 15 years before I retired, and she'd sent me a sympathy card. After Richard died with a note, "If you ever need anything day or night, you call me." I'd never called. She answered on the second ring. "Margaret? Oh my God, is that really you? Hi, Rita. I've been hoping you'd call. How are you?" And for the first time, I told someone the truth. Rita came over that same evening with a bottle of wine and a determination that reminded me why we'd worked so well together. "You're not drinking this alone," she'd said on the phone. "I'll be there in 40 minutes." She arrived in 35, let herself in through the front door I'd left unlocked, and found me still sitting at Richard's desk surrounded by papers. "Jesus, Margaret." She took one look at my face and pulled me into a hug. Rita was shorter than me, rounder, with gray hair she'd stopped dyeing years ago. She smelled like the same perfume she'd worn at the office, something floral and practical. I didn't cry, but I held on longer than I meant to, she said, releasing me and surveying the desk. "Show me what we're dealing with." I showed her everything, the statements, the forged power of attorney, my notebook full of loans never repaid. She read in silence, occasionally making small sounds of disgust or disbelief. "Those little shits," she finally said. Coming from Rita, who'd raised 3 kids as a single mother and didn't curse unless she really meant it, it felt validating. "Derek always seemed so polished," she continued. "Remember the Christmas party where he showed up in that expensive suit? Talked about his promotion?" I remembered. He'd barely spoken to me that night, too busy networking with the partners. "You know what this is?" Rita tapped the forged signature. "This is premeditation. He didn't do this on impulse. He planned it, got it notarized, which means someone witnessed this fraud, and filed it with your financial advisor. This took effort." "I know. Do you? Because you seem to be treating this like a family misunderstanding. This is a crime, Margaret. He's my son. And you're his mother, not his retirement account." She poured us each a glass of wine. "What does your attorney say?" "That I should document everything, change my beneficiaries, consider a competency evaluation." "Smart. What else?" "That's it so far." Rita looked at me over her wine glass. "That's not nearly enough." "What do you mean?" "You're playing defense, protecting what's yours, securing your assets. That's good. But Margaret, these people have been treating you like a piggy bank for years. They forged your signature. They're already talking about having you declared incompetent. Defense isn't enough. What are you suggesting?" She pulled out her phone and started typing. "I'm suggesting you stop being nice. You were the best bookkeeper we ever had. You found a $200 discrepancy in a corporate account with thousands of transactions. You never missed a deadline, never made an error. You're sharp as hell, and they know it. That's why they're moving now, because you cut off Macy's card and they're scared you're waking up. Rita, hold on. She turned her phone toward me. This is my daughter Sophia. Remember her? I did, vaguely. Rita had brought her to a company picnic once. Young, intense, studying something complicated. She's an estate planning attorney now, specializes in cases exactly like yours, and she's vicious in the best way possible. I already have an attorney, Sarah Chen, elder law. I know her. She's good for protection. But Sophia handles offense. She helps people rewrite their legacies so their ungrateful children learn what consequences mean. Rita's eyes were fierce. You want to just protect your money? Fine. But if you want to make sure Derek and Linda actually understand what they've lost, what they threw away by treating you like this, you need someone like Sophia. I took a sip of wine. It was better than the cheap stuff I usually bought. What would she do differently? She'd help you use that $340,000 as leverage. Not just to secure your future, but to build something that matters to you. A scholarship fund in Richard's name. A donation to causes you care about. A trust that helps people who actually deserve it. She'd help you rewrite your will in a way that sends a very clear message about what happens when you bite the hand that feeds you. That sounds vindictive. Damn right it is. And they've earned it. I looked at my notebook again. $47,300. Plus the $14,000 from Macy's credit card. Over $60,000 given freely, and not one thank you. Call her, Rita said quietly. Just meet with her. You don't have to do anything you're not comfortable with, but at least hear what your options are. Sophia Martinez arrived at my house 3 days later. She was nothing like her mother, tall, thin, wearing a suit that probably cost more than my monthly pension. But she had Rita's eyes, sharp and unforgiving. Mrs. Patterson, thank you for seeing me. We sat in the living room, and I told the story again. It was getting easier, more clinical. Facts instead of feelings. Sophia took notes on a tablet, occasionally asking pointed questions. When Derek called your financial advisor, did he ask about specific dollar amounts? Yes. Martin said he seemed very interested in the total portfolio value and growth projections. Did he ever ask about your health? Your mental state? I thought back to the phone calls. Yes, frequently. How I was managing, if I was feeling confused, if I was forgetting things. Building a paper trail, Sophia murmured, typing. Smart, but obvious. What about Linda? She mostly stayed in the background until recently. Now she's talking about assisted living facilities. Of course she is. Sophia looked up from her tablet. Mrs. Patterson, I'm going to be direct. Your children are engaging in a coordinated effort to either access your assets early or position themselves to challenge your competency. The forged power of attorney, the monitoring of your accounts, the sudden concern about your mental health. These are classic warning signs of financial elder abuse with intent to isolate and control. You sound like my other attorney. Sarah Chen is excellent at protection. I'm excellent at payback. She smiled, and it wasn't particularly warm. Here's what I propose. We create a comprehensive estate plan that accomplishes 3 things. First, it protects your assets completely. Second, it ensures those assets go to purposes you genuinely care about. Third, it makes crystal clear to your children exactly what they lost and why. How? Sophia pulled up a document on her tablet and turned it toward me. This is a sample letter of intent. It goes in your estate file and explains, in your own words, why you made the decisions you made. It's not legally binding, but it provides context. Judges love them in contested estate cases because they show clear reasoning and sound mind. I read the sample. It was written by someone's mother, explaining why she'd left her estate to charity instead of her children. The language was calm but devastating. I gave my children every advantage. They repaid me with neglect and financial exploitation. I'm not trying to punish them, I said. Aren't you? I looked at her. I'm trying to protect myself. Those 2 things aren't mutually exclusive. Sophia leaned forward. Mrs. Patterson, let me ask you something. If you died tomorrow, Derek, and Linda would split $340,000 plus whatever equity you have in this house, probably another $200,000, over $500,000. What have they done to deserve that? They're my children. That's biology, not achievement. What have they actually done? I couldn't answer. Now let me ask you this, Sophia continued. Is there anything you've always wanted to do? Any cause you care about? Any person or organization that's been there for you when your children weren't? I thought about Rita, showing up with wine and fierce loyalty. About Martin Steinberg, genuinely apologetic about being fooled. About Mrs. Chen next door, who brought me soup when I had the flu last winter and never asked for anything in return. I thought about the community college where I'd taken bookkeeping classes as a young mother, when we had no money and Richard worked 2 jobs. The scholarship I'd gotten had changed our lives. There's a scholarship fund, I said slowly, at the community college for single mothers studying accounting or finance. Richard and I used to donate to it every year, small amounts. After he died, I stopped because I thought I couldn't afford it. Sophia made a note. How much did you used to give? $500 a year. What if you could endow a full scholarship, a permanent one, funded by your estate, the Margaret and Richard Patterson Scholarship for single mothers in accounting programs? Your legacy together, helping women the way you were helped. Something shifted in my chest. Derek and Linda wouldn't get anything? I asked. Not nothing. You could leave them token amounts, $5,000 each maybe, enough that they can't claim they were accidentally forgotten. But the bulk of your estate would go to the scholarship fund, with smaller amounts to people and causes that actually matter to you. They'd be furious. Absolutely. And they'd contest the will. Can they do that? They can try. That's why we'd couple this with a competency evaluation, video. Recording of you explaining your decisions, detailed documentation of their financial abuse, and an ironclad will that includes a no contest clause. If they challenge it and lose, they get nothing at all. I stood up and walked to the window. Outside, Mrs. Chen was tending her roses again. The same roses she'd been growing for 20 years, patient and persistent. How long would all this take? I asked. The paperwork? 2 weeks? The competency evaluation I'd recommend? Schedule it for next week. We move fast before they try to move faster. I turned back to face her. You think they will? Try to move faster? Mrs. Patterson, you've gone silent on them. Cut off their access to your money. Your daughter literally suggested institutionalizing you on the phone. Yes, I think they'll escalate. As if on cue, my phone buzzed. A text from Derek. Mom, Linda and I are coming to visit this Sunday. We need to talk as a family. 2 p.m. Please be home. Not, can we visit? Not, would that work? For you. Please be home. I showed Sophia the text. She read it and nodded. There it is. They're coordinating, showing up together, unified front, ready to present their case for why you need help. Classic intervention setup. What should I do? You have a few options. You could refuse to see them. You could see them with a third party present, me or Sarah or even Rita, or, she paused. You could let them come and say their piece. Let them show their cards. Record the conversation. Oregon's a one-party consent state. You're allowed. Get everything documented. Record my own children. Document your own abusers, Sophia corrected gently. I know it feels wrong. But if this goes to court, if they try to have you declared incompetent, you'll want evidence of their true motivations. I looked at the text again. Sunday at 2 p.m. 3 days away. I'll see them, I said. But I want the competency evaluation done first. I want all the paperwork drawn up. I want everything ready. Consider it done. Sophia stood, gathering her things. One more thing. Don't tell them about the evaluation, the new will, any of it. As far as they know, you're just a confused old woman they're coming to help. I'm tired of pretending to be confused. I know. But just for 3 more days, let them think they're winning. Because the higher they climb, the harder they'll fall. After Sophia left, I sat in the quiet house, and thought about Richard, what he would say about all this. Part of me wanted to believe he'd be disappointed in me for even considering cutting off our children. But the larger part, the part that had loved him for 43 years, knew better. Richard had worked himself into an early grave to leave me secure. He'd planned and saved and sacrificed so I wouldn't have to worry. And Derek and Linda had treated that sacrifice like an ATM with a delayed payout. I picked up my phone and texted Derek back. "Sunday at 2 works. See you then." Then I called Sarah Chen and told her to schedule the competency evaluation for Friday. 2 days to prove I was in complete control of my faculties. Then Sunday, to let my children try to prove I wasn't. Friday morning, I dressed like I was going to court. Navy suit, the one I'd worn to Richard's funeral. Pearl earrings, hair done at the salon the day before, blown out smooth instead of my usual wash and wear. The competency evaluation was scheduled for 9 a.m. at a medical office across town. Dr. Rebecca Walsh was younger than me, but not by much, maybe mid-60s, with silver hair in a neat bun and bifocals on a chain. Her office smelled like coffee and had certificates covering one wall. Stanford Medical School. Board certified in geriatric psychiatry. Expert witness in 37 court cases. Sophia had chosen well. "Mrs. Patterson, thank you for coming in. I know these evaluations can feel invasive." "I understand they're necessary," she smiled. "That's a good start. Let's begin with some basics. Can you tell me today's date?" "Friday, October 24th, 2025. "And who's the current president?" "Donald Trump, unfortunately." It slipped out before I could stop it. Dr. Walsh's smile widened. "Opinion noted. Can you tell me what you had for breakfast?" "Oatmeal with blueberries and coffee, 2 cups. For the next hour, she took me through a battery of tests. Memory exercises. She'd give me lists of words and ask me to repeat them later. Math problems, pattern recognition, questions about current events, about my medical history, about my daily routines. "Who manages your finances?" she asked. "I do." "Can you walk me through your monthly budget?" I could, easily. Broke it down category by category. Mortgage, paid off, utilities, groceries, insurance, medical expenses. Told her about my Social Security and pension, the exact amounts. Explained how I balanced my checkbook, monitored my accounts online, tracked my spending. "And you do all this independently? No help from family members?" "No help from anyone." She made a note. "Tell me about your social life." I told her about book club, monthly meetings I'd attended for 6 years, about Mrs. Chen next door, our casual friendship, about Rita, my former colleague, about the garden club I'd joined last spring. "What about your children? How often do you see them?" "Not often. Derek lives about 40 minutes away, but he's busy with work. Linda's in Seattle." "Do they help you with anything? Shopping? Household? Tasks? Medical appointments?" "No." "Do you want them to?" I thought about how to answer that. "I want them to visit because they want to see me, not because they think I need help." Dr. Walsh looked at me over her glasses. "Mrs. Patterson, can I ask you something off the record?" "Of course." "Why are you here?" These evaluations are usually requested by family members trying to prove incompetence or by attorneys building a defense against those claims. "You initiated this yourself," I told her. "Not everything, but enough. The forged power of attorney, the conversation about assisted living, the feeling that my children were building a case against me." She listened without interrupting, occasionally jotting notes. "And you're changing your estate plan in response to this?" she asked. "I'm changing it because I finally understand I have choices. I spent 3 years thinking I had just enough to survive on. Turns out I have resources my children have been monitoring for years, waiting for me to die so they could inherit. How does that make you feel? Angry, betrayed, stupid for not seeing it sooner. Those are very rational responses to a very painful situation." She set down her pen. "Mrs. Patterson, I'm going to be straight with you. You're one of the sharpest 72-year-olds I've evaluated. Your memory is excellent, your reasoning is sound, your financial management is exemplary. If your children try to claim incompetence, they won't have a leg to stand on." Something tight in my chest loosened. You're sure? I'm sure. I'll have a full written report for you by Monday, but I can tell you now, you are absolutely competent to make your own decisions about your health, your finances, and your estate. I left her office feeling lighter than I had in weeks. The validation from an objective professional mattered more than I'd expected. Sunday came too quickly and not quickly enough. I spent Saturday preparing the house, not cleaning for guests, but setting the stage. The small recording device Sophia had given me was tucked inside the bookshelf, disguised as a clock. My phone was charging on the side table, voice memo app ready to start with one touch. Rita had offered to be there with me, but I'd said no. This needed to be just family. Just me and the two people I'd raised, facing each other across the coffee table I'd bought at a yard sale 30 years ago. Derek's car pulled up at exactly 2 p.m. A silver BMW, this year's model. Linda was with him. She must have flown in yesterday. I watched through the window as they sat in the car for a moment, talking. Derek gestured with his hands, emphatic about something. Linda nodded, checking her face in the visor mirror. They were preparing, coordinating. I opened the door before they could knock. "Hi, Mom." Derek leaned in for a hug that felt rehearsed. Linda followed, her embrace stiff. "Come in." I made coffee. We settled in the living room. Them on the couch, me in Richard's old recliner. The good china cups I'd brought out sat on a tray with cream and sugar. Nobody touched them. Derek cleared his throat. "Mom, we wanted to come talk to you because we're worried." I hit record on my phone, a subtle tap that looked like I was just adjusting it. "Worried about what?" "About you. About some of the decisions you've been making lately." He had his concerned executive voice on, the one he probably used with underperforming employees, cutting off Macy without warning, refusing to return calls, this hostile attitude toward the family. Hostile? "Mom." Linda leaned forward, her voice soft, gentle. "We know you've been struggling since Dad died. That's completely normal. Grief is hard, and it can be even harder to cope. We think maybe you're not thinking as clearly as you used to. Small memory problems, difficulty managing stress, maybe some confusion about finances." "I'm not confused about finances." Derek exchanged a look with Linda. A quick flash of communication. "Here we go," it said. "Mom, that's part of the problem. People experiencing cognitive decline often don't realize it. They think they're managing fine when they're actually what, Derek? Making poor decisions, acting impulsively, becoming paranoid and suspicious. Is it paranoid to notice that you forged a power of attorney in my name?" The room went very still. Derek's face didn't change much, just a slight tightening around his eyes. "What are you talking about?" "The document you sent to Martin Steinberg 3 years ago. The one with my signature that I never signed." "Mom, I don't know what you're referring to." "Don't." My voice came out harder than I expected. "Don't lie to me. Not now. Not in this house." Linda stood up. "This is exactly what we're talking about. These paranoid delusions." "Sit down, Linda." Something in my tone made her sit. "I know about the accounts," I continued. "All of them. I know you've been receiving my financial statements for 3 years. I know exactly how much money your father left me, and I know you've both been tracking it like wolves watching a wounded deer." "That's not," Derek started. $340,000, I said. "Plus the house. Over $500,000 you've been waiting for me to die so you could split it." Derek's face flushed red. "This is insane. Mom, you're proving our point. The accusations are documented. I have the forged power of attorney. I have records of every statement you requested. I have..." Derek. "Evidence of what? Of a son trying to help his elderly mother manage her affairs? You weren't returning calls from your financial advisor. Someone had to make sure you weren't being taken advantage of." I laughed. Actually laughed. Taken advantage of? By who? Martin Steinberg, who'd been managing our money for 20 years? Or maybe by you, the son who forged my signature? Linda stood again. "We're not doing this. Derek, she's clearly not well. We need to what?" I stood too, facing them both. "Put me in a home? Sell this house? Have me declared incompetent so you can take control of everything? You're twisting this, Derek said, but his voice had lost its professional smoothness. Now he just sounded angry. We came here out of love, out of concern, and you're treating us like enemies. You made yourselves enemies when you started treating me like an obstacle between you and your inheritance. Inheritance? Derek's voice rose. You think this is about money? I know it is. We have our own money, Mom. I don't need yours. Then why did you forge my power of attorney? Why have you been monitoring my accounts? Why is Linda suddenly interested in assisted living facilities? Because you're 72 years old and living alone in a house that's too big for you. Linda's voice cracked. Because you're isolated and bitter and making crazy decisions like cutting off your own granddaughter. Macy spent $14,000 on vacations using my emergency credit card. She's young. She made mistakes. But instead of talking to her, instead of setting boundaries like a normal person, you just cut her off and refused to explain. I don't owe explanations for managing my own money. See? Derek pointed at me like I was evidence in a trial. This is exactly the problem. You've become irrational, defensive, hostile to your own family. These are classic signs of dementia. I had a competency evaluation on Friday. They both stopped. I'm sorry, what? Derek said. A full psychiatric and cognitive evaluation by Dr. Rebecca Walsh, a board-certified geriatric psychiatrist. She'll be submitting a report confirming that I am fully competent to manage my own affairs, make my own decisions, and understand exactly what I'm doing. Linda sank back onto the couch. You had us evaluated? No, I had myself evaluated, to prove that when I change my will, I'm doing it with complete mental clarity. Change your will? Derek's voice was barely a whisper. Yes, I'm rewriting it completely. The bulk of my estate will be going to establish a scholarship fund at the community college, in your father's name and mine. You can't do that. I can, and I am. We're your children. Linda's voice broke completely now. After everything we've done for you, what have you done for me, Linda? Name one thing. We call you. We invite you. You call once a month when you remember. You invite me to events where I'm expected to bring expensive gifts. You've visited me exactly twice since your father died, both times to ask for money. That's not fair. You want to talk about fair? Let's talk about the $47,000 I gave you both over the years, money you never repaid, never acknowledged, never said thank you for. Let's talk about fair. Derek stood abruptly. This is elder abuse. Someone is manipulating you. A lawyer, probably, seeing a vulnerable widow, and I'm not vulnerable. I'm awake. You're being used. The only people who've used me are standing in this room. The silence that followed was thick enough to cut. Derek's face had gone from red to almost purple. If you do this, if you cut us out of Dad's legacy, we'll fight it. We'll contest the will. We'll prove you weren't in your right mind. With what evidence? The forged power of attorney you created? The financial statements you've been secretly receiving? Go ahead and try. Bring it to court. Let a judge see exactly what you've done. Linda was crying now, but it looked more like anger than sadness. I can't believe you're doing this. Your own children. After we've worried about you, tried to take care of you. You tried to take care of my money. Not me. Derek grabbed his keys. Come on, Linda. We're leaving. Derek! Now. They headed for the door. Linda paused, turned back to look at me. For just a second, I thought I saw something genuine in her face. Hurt, maybe. Or shock. Was any of it real? She asked quietly. Or have you hated us this whole time? I loved you, I said. Past tense. You taught me the difference. She flinched like I'd slapped her. Then they were gone. The BMW pulled out of the driveway too fast, tires squealing slightly on the pavement. I stood in the doorway and watched them go. My hands were shaking. My heart was pounding. But I wasn't crying. I walked back inside, stopped the recording on my phone, and listened to the silence. Then I called Sophia. It's done, I said when she answered. I have it all on tape. How do you feel? I thought about it. Terrified, sad, free. That sounds about right, Sophia said gently. Margaret, you did the right thing. Then why does it hurt so much? Because they're still your children. And you're still human. After we hung up, I sat in Richard's chair and looked around the living room. The couch where I'd rocked 2 babies. The piano where Derek had practiced scales grudgingly, where Linda had played surprisingly well. The bookshelf full of photo albums documenting a family that didn't exist anymore. Or maybe it had never existed the way I thought it did. My phone buzzed. A text from Derek. You'll regret this. I deleted it without responding. Then I opened my email and found the message Dr. Walsh had sent that morning, ahead of schedule. Competency Evaluation Report. Margaret Patterson. Final determination. Patient demonstrates full cognitive capacity and sound, decision-making ability. I saved it to 3 different places. Then I poured myself a glass of the good wine Rita had brought and sat in the quiet house, waiting for whatever came next. 3 weeks later, I was standing in the parking lot of Riverside Community College, staring at a building I hadn't seen in 47 years. It looked different. They'd renovated, added new wings, updated everything, but the bones were the same. The original brick building where I'd sat in Introduction to Accounting in 1978, 8 months pregnant with Linda, taking notes while my back ached and my future felt impossible. Mrs. Patterson? A woman in her 40s approached, hand extended. I'm Dr. Jennifer Ortiz, Dean of Financial Studies. Thank you so much for coming. We shook hands. Her grip was firm, professional. Thank you for meeting with me, I said. She led me inside, through hallways that smelled like floor polish and possibility. Students rushed past with backpacks and coffee cups, young and harried and hopeful. We ended up in her office, smaller than I expected, crammed with books and files and a photo of 2 kids on the desk. So, Dr. Ortiz said, settling into her chair, Ms. Martinez explained that you're interested in endowing a scholarship, the Margaret and Richard Patterson Scholarship for single mothers in accounting programs. Yes, my husband and I. My voice caught unexpectedly. Even after 3 years, sometimes it still hurt. We wanted to help women who are trying to build a future for themselves and their children, the way I was helped. You attended Riverside? In 1978, I had a small scholarship that covered my books and fees. It doesn't sound like much, but it was everything. It let me finish my degree while my husband worked 2 jobs and we tried to figure out how to afford diapers. Dr. Ortiz smiled. Those small scholarships save lives. We have 12 single mothers in the accounting program right now. Every single one of them is working at least part-time. Most have multiple children, and they're all trying to imagine a future where they're not living to paycheck, exactly like I'd been. How much would be needed to endow a full scholarship? I asked. Tuition, books, fees, everything. She pulled up a spreadsheet on her computer. For a full-ride scholarship in perpetuity, with the endowment generating enough annual income to cover all expenses, we'd be looking at approximately $150,000. I'd done the math already with Sophia, knew the number before she said it. I'd like to fund 2 scholarships, I said, fully endowed, $300,000 total. Dr. Ortiz's eyes widened. Mrs. Patterson, I know it's a lot, but I want 2 students every year to have what I had. She was quiet for a moment. Then, can I ask you something? This is clearly a very personal gift. Is there a reason you're doing it now? I thought about how to answer that. I'm 72, I said finally. I spent 3 years thinking I had barely enough to survive. Then I discovered I had resources I didn't know about, and I realized I had a choice. I could leave that money to people who saw me as an obstacle, or I could use it to become the person I wish I'd had when I was 25 and terrified. Dr. Ortiz nodded slowly. Your children, they made their choices. I'm making mine. I think your choice is beautiful. We spent the next hour going through details, paperwork, timelines, how the selection process would work. Sophia had already drawn up the documentation. The scholarship fund would be managed by the college, with strict criteria and oversight. When we finished, Dr. Ortiz walked me back through the building. We passed a bulletin board covered in announcements, tutoring services, job postings, A flyer for the campus food bank. We have a lot of students who use that, Dr. Ortiz said, noticing where I was looking. The food bank. It's volunteer-run, always underfunded. I made a mental note. Outside, the autumn sun was warm on my face. Students sat on benches, studying or scrolling through phones or just existing in that particular kind of young exhaustion. Mrs. Patterson, Dr. Ortiz said at my car, I know this probably doesn't mean much, but what you're doing, it's going to change lives. Real lives. Students who might have given up will be able to keep going because of you and your husband. It meant more than she knew. I stopped at the grocery store on the way. Home. Wandered the aisles without a list, putting things in my cart that looked good. Fresh flowers, a nice steak, a bottle of wine that cost more than $15. At checkout, the total was $127.83. I didn't flinch. The cashier, a kid maybe 20 with tired eyes, smiled as he bagged my groceries. Have a great day, ma'am. You too, sweetheart. In the car, I sat for a moment before starting the engine. My phone showed 3 missed calls from a number I didn't recognize. No voicemail. Probably Derek or Linda calling from a different phone. They'd been trying for weeks. Texts, calls, even a letter from an attorney threatening to challenge my competency evaluation. Sophia had responded to that with a letter of her own that apparently made them go quiet for a few days. But they'd be back. I knew that. Children who saw their inheritance disappearing didn't give up easily. I didn't care anymore. At home, Mrs. Chen was in her yard, pruning roses. Margaret, I haven't seen you in a few days. I got out of the car, walked over to the fence that separated our properties. I've been busy. Had some things to take care of. Everything okay? Actually, yes. Everything's okay. She studied my face with the kind of attention that came from 60-some years of reading people. You look different. Different how? Lighter. You put down something heavy. I smiled. Maybe I did. She handed me a rose over the fence, deep red, perfectly formed. For your table. Roses are better when they're shared. Inside, I put the rose in a vase and started cooking. The steak, roasted vegetables, a salad with the good ingredients. I opened the wine and poured myself a glass. Then I called Rita. Hey, how'd it go with the college? I signed the paperwork. The Margaret and Richard Patterson Scholarship is official. 2 students every year. Margaret, that's incredible. How do you feel? Like I just spent $300,000. And it feels right. Really right. Rita was quiet for a moment. You know what I'm proud of? Not just that you're doing this, but that you're doing it for yourself, because it matters to you. Not because someone told you to, or because you're trying to prove something, just because it's what you want. After we hung up, I sat at the kitchen table with my wine and my dinner and thought about that. For most of my life, I'd made decisions based on what other people needed. Richard needed a partner who could manage money. I became that. My children needed a mother who provided. I became that. My grandchildren needed a grandmother with an open wallet. I tried to become that too. I'd spent 72 years being useful. Now I was being intentional. The doorbell rang at 7:30. I almost didn't answer, thinking it might be Derek. But when I looked through the peephole, I saw a young woman I didn't recognize, early 20s, wearing scrubs, holding a small plant. I opened the door. Hi, Mrs. Patterson? I'm Amy Chen, Mrs. Chen's granddaughter? I'd seen her before, vaguely. She lived with her grandmother sometimes, between shifts at the hospital. Hi, Amy, is everything okay? Oh, yeah. Sorry, I should have started with that. Grandma's fine. She told me what you're doing. The scholarship fund at Riverside. My stomach tightened. How does she know about that? Dr. Ortiz is her niece. They talk every week. Amy shifted the plant nervously. I'm sorry. I hope it's okay that she mentioned it, but I went to Riverside. I was in the nursing program, and there were so many times I almost quit because I couldn't afford books or childcare for my daughter or... She stopped, took a breath. I just wanted to say thank you for helping students like I was. It matters. She held out the plant. Grandma grew this from a cutting. She wanted you to have it. I took it. A small succulent in a ceramic pot painted with flowers. Thank you, Amy. That's very sweet. Also, if you ever need anything, grocery shopping, rides to appointments, whatever, I'm here a lot and I'd be happy to help. Grandma says you don't ask for help, but the offer stands. After she left, I put the succulent on the kitchen windowsill next to the rose. Help. Offered freely, without strings, without expectations of inheritance or repayment. It had been so long since I'd experienced that, I'd almost forgotten what it felt like. That night, I couldn't sleep. I got up around midnight and went to Richard's office, my office now. I'd started using it more, had cleaned out some of his old papers, made space for my own things. I pulled out the letter I'd been writing, the one Sophia had suggested, letter of intent explaining my decisions. I'd started it 3 times and deleted it twice. But tonight, with wine still warm in my system and clarity finally settling in my bones, the words came easier. To whomever reads this, my name is Margaret Elizabeth Patterson. I am 72 years old, of sound mind and clear purpose. I am writing this to explain why I have chosen to direct the majority of my estate away from my children and toward causes that matter to me. Not because I am angry, though I have been. Not because I am vengeful, though that would be understandable. But because I have learned, late in life, that love should not be measured in anticipated inheritances. My husband Richard and I worked hard our entire lives. We saved carefully, spent modestly, and built a future we thought would provide security. Richard died believing our children would honor that sacrifice. Instead, I discovered that my son forged legal documents to monitor my assets, that my daughter discussed institutionalizing me to gain control of my home, that my granddaughter spent thousands of my dollars on luxuries and called my concern wasteful. I gave my children everything I could: time, money, love, opportunity. They took it as their due and waited for me to die so they could take more. I am not angry anymore. I am simply done. The Margaret and Richard Patterson Scholarship Fund will help single mothers achieve financial independence through education. It will give women what I was given 47 years ago: a chance. My children had their chances. They chose to spend them planning for my death instead of valuing my life. This is not punishment. This is clarity. I hope whoever receives this understands I made these decisions with full awareness, complete competency, and absolute certainty that I am doing the right thing. Not for revenge, for peace. I signed it, dated it, put it in the folder with all the other documents, the competency evaluation, the recordings from the confrontation, the evidence of Derek's forgery. Then I closed the folder and put it away. 2 months later, I was having coffee with Rita when my phone rang. Unknown number. I almost didn't answer, but something made me. Hello, Mrs. Patterson? This is Dr. Ortiz at Riverside. I wanted to let you know. We've selected our first 2 scholarship recipients. I thought you might like to meet them. They were both younger than I expected. Maria was 19 with a 2-year-old son. Destiny was 23 with twins. We met in Dr. Ortiz's office, and both of them looked terrified until I smiled. I'm not here to interview you, I said gently. I just wanted to meet the first students who will carry my husband's name forward. Maria spoke first, her voice soft. I don't know what to say except thank you. I was going to have to drop out. I couldn't afford next semester's books and my son's daycare at the same time. Now you don't have to choose, I said. Destiny wiped her eyes. My mom raised me alone, worked 3 jobs to keep us fed. I wanted to break that cycle for my girls, but I didn't know how. This scholarship, it's literally changing our lives. I thought about myself at their age, pregnant, scared, determined, Richard working nights and weekends. The scholarship that had seemed so small, but meant everything. You're going to do great things, I told them. Both of you. Not because of the money, but because you already have what it takes. The scholarship just removed some obstacles. After they left, Dr. Ortiz handed me a folder. Photos, if you'd like them, for your records, or just to remember. I looked at the pictures. Maria holding her textbooks, smiling. Destiny with her daughters at the college campus. Lives changing, because of a choice I'd made. I drove home slowly, taking the long way past the park. Spring was coming early this year, trees budding, flowers pushing through the soil. My phone buzzed. A text from Linda. I almost deleted it without reading. But curiosity won. Mom, I know you probably won't respond, but I wanted to say I'm sorry. Not for wanting the money, I won't lie about that, but for not seeing you, for treating you like you were already gone. I don't expect forgiveness, but you deserved better from me. I stared at it for a long time. It wasn't enough. It didn't fix anything, but it was something. I didn't respond. Maybe someday I would. Maybe not. For now, I just drove home. That evening, I sat in the backyard with a glass of wine and watched the sunset. The house behind me was quiet. The yard needed work. Richard had always handled the garden. But Mrs. Chen had offered to help me plant vegetables in the spring. Amy had mentioned she liked gardening too. My phone sat silent beside me. No calls from children demanding explanations. No texts from grandchildren wanting money. Just quiet. For the first time in 3 years, maybe longer, I wasn't waiting for anything. Not for someone to need me, or use me, or die so they could inherit from me. I was just being. Margaret Elizabeth Patterson, 72 years old, widow, mother, grandmother, former bookkeeper, scholarship founder, friend. Woman who'd learned the difference between being loved and being useful. The sun dipped below the horizon, painting everything gold. I raised my glass to Richard, wherever he was. I kept the important promise. I whispered. I made sure Margaret doesn't have to worry. Then I drank my wine and watched the stars come out, one by one, in a sky that felt bigger and more open than it had in years. Somewhere, Maria was putting her son to bed and studying for tomorrow's exam. Somewhere, Destiny was reading to her daughters and imagining a future where she didn't have to work 3 jobs. Somewhere, my children were learning that inheritance is earned, not owed. And here, in the quiet backyard of a house I'd lived in for 45 years, I was finally, peacefully, myself. Not bitter, not broken, just free.